I'm Judith Kerham. I'm Development Director at CareTrade. And this is
I'm Hilary Fertig, and I can't click and talk at the same time, but I will introduce myself in a short while. Now then, can you confirm that, please, somebody confirm whether they can see those slides?
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, great, thank you. So, as I was saying, inability to multitask, but hello, I'm Hilary Fertig, and I also work in CareTrade, and I'm the Executive Manager of Employment Autism, and we seem to have flicked over automatically to the first slide, so I'll leave Judith to pick that one up.
Thank you. So CareTrade has been running for nearly 15 years. It is our 15th anniversary next year. And in all that time, we have evolved our support to meet the needs of a variety and a varied group of individuals. Everyone that we support will have a diagnosis of autism or a neurodivergent condition, or be actively seeking a diagnosis or self-identify with a neurodivergent condition. And we run a number of services. We have the Autism Project, which is our supported internship for 18 to 25-year-olds with an education, health and care plan living in any London borough. I just want to add that we're based in Elephant and Castle, so people need to be able to travel into us if they have access any of our services that are based at our offices. We are always, as a quick plug, looking for people to offer opportunities and placements to our young people to enable them to build their skills and move into the workplace. The Autism Project is a 3-year program, so it gives people lots of time to develop their skills, gain qualifications and gain experience so they can successfully move into employment. We also support people moving on. So when they go into the workplace, we're able to support them through access to work. And as well as doing that, we can support employers through training sessions like these. We also have a weekend cafe and kitchen traineeship program. So we're actually about to move our weekend kitchen to a week kitchen. So it'll be Monday to Fridays. And we're going to have a number of traineeships to enable people to build up their skills and learn on the job, and also prepare lovely meals for a local charity that we're partnering with. We, as I said, we're an access to work provider. We do a lot of social enrichment. So we support a lot of our participants on social activities. We are usually the only kind of source of social activities that they may have outside of their home or workplace. So being able to support people to kind of build bridges and make friends and meet like-minded people is really important and very good for people's well-being as well. And we have an over 25s program. So over 25s, there's a lot of funding. There's not much funding at all. So we have managed to get 5 years funding where we can support over 25s to move into employment at any stage, 25 plus. So the oldest person we are currently supporting is actually 60 years of age. Retirement is kind of a far-reaching hope and dream. And so he's happy to carry on working until he feels he's no longer able to. And we have a job coach cafe that Hilary and I run. It's a monthly virtual cafe where through LinkedIn, where we offer the opportunity for job coaches and those working in this field to share information, to learn from each other, to ask for advice and to have a general chat. And then we have Employment Autism. Hilary, do you want to give a little bit more information about that?
Yeah, sure. We seem to have gone to another CareTrade time. So is there anything more you want to say there, Judith, before we move on to Employment Autism?
I think I've more or less said everything. I mean, the Autism Project is partnered with Guy's and St Thomas's, which is one of the largest hospitals in the country, and the Whittington Hospital in North London. But we also work with a range of other employers throughout the programme. And we have a success rate of around 60% of our young people are offered work or move into further education or stay with us to continue job finding. And then if they move on to our other programme, we then currently, as of January, have helped over 37% of our participants to move in or back into work.
So just a bit about Employment Autism. As it says, we merged with CareTrade towards the end of last year. And basically, so we are both charities. We have and had very much the same ethos and the same direction, and our services are complementary, so it made sense for us to merge. So historically, we were set up because support and research was traditionally always aimed at children, with sort of very little recognition that autistic children became autistic adults. And so at some point the penny dropped, and there was a great recognition that sort of access to employment was a big barrier. So that's how come Employment Autism was initially set up as an internal project within another charity, and then spun off separately as an autonomous organisation. So we know that employment is related to well-being, so it has social and economic benefits for both the employees and their families who are having to look after them, potentially take time off to care for them. So we provide best practice, evidence-based information and guidance for anybody who wants it. So it's free at the point of access. We know we get a lot of job seekers, employers, families, advocates, professionals, teachers, you name it. I mean, even some professionals who support autistic people themselves, who just need an extra push for that information about employment. So we gather information about the people who contact us. So we know the breadth and the depth of the need, both for autistic people for themselves and around all of those who are supporting them. So we use that information both for our own research, and we contribute to other people's research. So we, for example, contributed to the Buckland Review of Autism Employment, which was published this year by Sir Robert Buckland, who is sadly no longer an MP because he stood down at the last election, but he was a great advocate for autistic and disabled people. And our information and advice service is available to anybody. We've run so far 2 annual conferences, which have been then again free. We've been very, very lucky in being given a venue for this. So we are unfortunately looking for a new venue. So once again, another plug, if anybody knows of any venues amongst you or your clients that have got a conference venue for a couple of hundred people, please do let us know, based in London preferably, or at least easily accessible. We also do talks and training, and we get lots, although we don't have a help desk service, we're contacted independently, randomly, on an ad hoc basis by hundreds of people a year, and we do respond to these, usually advice giving, guidance, and a lot of signposting, because people just don't know where to go. So that's where we are. So I'm going to move on. Judith, take it away, please. Can't hear you.
Sorry. Autism is a lifelong developmental condition. It is one of the most common neurodivergent conditions. It mainly affects how a person communicates and understands communication and views the world around them. So if you think about everything that you've done today that enables you to get where you are now and to sit here and watch this, all the communication that you have used in order to get here, there's been so many different types. So if you think about from getting up in the morning, alarms, listening to the radio, speaking to a partner, making any telephone calls, WhatsApp messages, looking at social media, getting on the train, listening to announcements, looking at signage, walking to the office, ordering a coffee, getting into the office, talking to people, joining this meeting. There are so many forms of communication. And for someone an autistic person, they may find some of those difficult and quite overwhelming. So it's really important that whenever we're looking at support, that we're looking at how we can support somebody based on their needs. And with regards to autism, everybody is different. So if you've met one person with autism, you have met one person with autism. So it is not linear. It's not a one size fits all, as I said. And we need to really make sure that we understand the individual. In any support that we offer, the individual is key. Always asking them what they need and they want really makes the biggest difference, so that you're not kind of saying, well, I supported somebody else and that's what they did, so I'll do the same. That's not the case at all. It is currently believed that 1 in 100 adults in the UK have an autism spectrum condition. I would say that's probably quite a conservative estimate, but it just makes you aware that that's still quite a lot. You know, it's 1% of the population. So this statistic is slightly out of date because the Buckland Review put it at, I think, 38% of autistic adults are currently in work, which is compared to 52% of disabled people and 81% of non-disabled people. But it's still lower than the general disability population. And there are lots of reasons why autism is still a condition where employment just seems to be much kind of harder to reach than other conditions. And a lot of that is the way that recruitment is done, and how recruitment sometimes is quite a negative experience for a neurodivergent person because there are so many barriers to recruitment. So we really need to look at how we can improve recruitment practices. And there's lots of really short, you know, quick wins to enable us to do that. In order to kind of increase that number. It's also really important to remember about masking, which is quite a common neurodivergent trait for a lot of people. It's when people are literally putting a mask on and pretending to be something that they're not in the workplace in order to fit in and kind of be more socially acceptable in behaviours. What this does is it leads to a lot of burnout. People can be incredibly stressed and anxious around when they get home. Literally, they can crash because the exhaustion of putting on a mask and trying to be something you're not during the day just enable someone to just like burn out at the end of the day, and they just need to literally sit in a dark room and just kind of, you know, debrief and get their breath back, ready to start the day the next day all over again. And what we try and do with the support that we provide to both employers and individuals is to make sure that we're kind of supporting someone to be their authentic self and not have to wear a mask. Next slide. So neurodiversity is a viewpoint of which autism is part of that. And neurodiversity is not an official diagnosis. So you will not get someone diagnosed with neurodiversity, but you will have neurodivergent adults who will share or identify with one of the neurodivergent conditions. You don't have to have a formal diagnosis. So you can self-identify, and that will enable you to get the support that you need. And if you go down the road of getting a formal diagnosis, you can choose to do that as well. It's roughly 15% of the population, which is 1 in 7. So it's quite high. And as you can see, there are lots of conditions on there that are quite common, but I always want to point out that acquired neurodiversity and mental health are on there as well. So it's really important that you're aware that actually there are lots more people out there that probably would identify as neurodivergent, but may not realize that they have a neurodivergent condition or can identify as neurodivergent. And really, it's about thinking differently. It's around the executive functioning in someone's brain works slightly differently from the executive functioning in a neurotypical person's brain. So it's around how someone processes information and takes the information in and uses the information, the speed they may do that at, and the kind of the processes and the steps that they may take in order to then complete tasks may be different from somebody else. But again, it's very individualized. What we want to do is we want to accept everybody's differences, because the more difference you have within the workplace, actually you bring a wealth of knowledge to the workplace. You have people thinking outside the box. You have people coming with different ideas, people willing to, you know, try new things and be innovative. So actually having a neurodivergent staff group is a really huge benefit to any workplace.
So just following on a bit more from Judith about the benefits of employing somebody with autism. These are just a few of the skills that are associated with autistic and neurodivergent people. And I just noticed I put intuition on there twice, so pattern recognition clearly is not one of my strengths. But nevertheless, these are just a few of them. It's not a complete set, obviously, but it's just having an idea of what the other skills that you could bring into the workplace if you employ neurodivergent people. And while we're on the term neurodivergent, this is the context for some of the terminology we use. So neurodiversity, I like to say it's kind of the brain equivalent of biodiversity. So if you are neurodivergent, then you probably have one of these conditions. And neurodivergent, the alternative to that is often referred to as either neurotypical or somebody with a predominant neurotype. And so all of those conditions are neurodivergent conditions. We've got on the employment website, we've got an explanation of the terms that we use. So if there's any queries about that, by all means, come back to me or have a look at our website. Because people will talk about themselves in different ways. Some autistic people refer to themselves as disabled, other autistic people don't. It's important to mirror the way that somebody talks about themselves, which is a mark of respect for them. While we're on that subject, in the UK generally, it's preferred to say autistic person rather than person with autism. But then again, if somebody refers to themselves as a person with autism rather than an autistic person, then go with the flow. That's what they want. That's very much a UK preference. I think you'll find that in the US and in parts of Europe, it's a person with autism. But please just use the terminology that people use about themselves. Little bit more, just following on from Judith's slide about masking. Just here are just some of the things that somebody who is masking might be doing. Imagine yourself being dropped into an alien culture and then suddenly trying to understand what it is that they're doing and what the etiquette is, and trying to behave appropriately without actually knowing and without having anyone explain it to you. It's a pretty difficult thing. But awareness of the existence of masking and the differences in communication styles leads to understanding and may even just eliminate the issue. So, for example, if somebody isn't making eye contact with you, does it really matter? You know, if you are aware that for somebody making eye contact might actually be a very difficult thing. So just being aware of that, it sort of eliminates the why are they doing that, rather than, oh yeah, I understand why they may be doing that, that's okay. As Judith said, you likely wouldn't know that somebody is masking, and especially women do it very well, because women are very good social observers, and they're very good at social play acting. As Judith said, it does cause huge stress, anxiety and exhaustion. And the other consequence is that an employee may be performing really, really well in the workplace. And the fact that they are masking, the fact that they are suffering from this stress and anxiety may only come to light when somebody goes off sick with mental ill health. So that is, you know, that comes as a surprise to some employers who can't understand all of a sudden why an employee who's doing really well is suddenly off sick for a number of months. Moving on, this is a film. So Malia is an autistic artist. She is also an advocate for people with autism. She works as a mentor, but she also holds down regular jobs as well. And she's just, I think it's worth hearing from firsthand what the experience of being in the workplace is like. So if you'll bear with me, I'll play this film. It lasts just for a few minutes.
Hi there, I'm Malia. I'm a visual artist, and my art is based around my diagnosis of autism and other people's experiences of being on the autistic spectrum. And my work is also based around increasing understanding and acceptance around autism. I was diagnosed around 7 years ago now. Before becoming an artist, I used to work in an office, not very successfully. I used to work in market research. I had quite a typical path into employment, I would say. I was quite good at school. I went to university. I got onto a job on a graduate scheme. But I just really used to struggle a lot in the workplace, being in an office environment, the environment itself, the fact that it's, well, the majority of all the offices I've ever worked in have always been very open plans, very loud, and just not being able to control my sensory environment. But not just the environment itself, also just understanding the workplace. I'd have this job spec, this job description, yet I'd spend a lot of my days in meetings and back-to-back meetings around topics not related to my job role, around different work streams and whatnot, and then expected to do my work somewhere along the day. The etiquette as well in the workplace, especially around networking, getting on with others. I always found that quite confusing and not very linear and easy to understand. I would mask a lot as well in order to kind of fit in and have some other parts of myself. And I was just always very, very exhausted. And also having to throw out my energy across this 9-hour period or however long I was at work for. It just did not suit me. I work in a very hyper-focused manner, so in a very condensed short space of time. And then after that, I need to stop because I'm just really, really tired. So there are many things about being in an office that just did not work for me. The stress as well. I'm very sensitive to stress and anxiety. I always have this very basic sort of baseline anxiety every day anyway. And so I became really unwell, both physically and mentally. Eventually I was diagnosed with being autistic, that helped me understand a lot of things about myself, in terms of what works for me and what doesn't. And it also led to me then becoming an artist actually, and having a portfolio career. So I'm self-employed, I work as an artist and neurodivergent advocate, but I also have 2 part-time roles that I do alongside that. And yeah, it's a trickier path to navigate, I would say, because it's not a well-trodden path, and I don't really have sort of role models of people around me that do this. And then like adding being autistic into all of that as well, that just adds to the mix. So I feel like it's still very much the path I'm trying to navigate and figure out. The 2 part-time jobs that I do, they're a mix, they're a hybrid mix actually. So sometimes in the office, but sometimes not. I didn't think after my previous time in an office that I'd ever be able to work in an office again. But it's been really different this time round, because I've been able to ask for reasonable adjustments. So, for example, flexible hours, having the lights in the office change so that instead of all of them coming on, we've got 2 lights, which is likely to turn on half of them, so that helps a lot. How to move pots. I'm moving offices at the moment, and there's a really noisy fridge, so having that removed, that's great. I mean, I've asked for a number of requests, I guess. I don't think it becomes easier, and it's still really scary. Like you're disclosing such a personal, private part of yourself to someone. You don't know how someone is going to react and what they do or do not know about autism, and just their general openness to difference, I suppose. But yeah, it's a definite positive that I have been able to successfully have these changes made for me, or at least it's been a conversation. So yeah, I feel like I'm in a much better place. I feel like I'm in a space where I can advocate for myself and actually can work in an office, which I honestly feel I can do ever again. It is definitely a navigation. Like, I still feel that I'm very much living in this world. Well, I do always have to ask for reasonable adjustments, not just at work, but in other places, the built environment that I do too. But yeah, it's become easier. So yeah, I hope that helps to hear my perspective of my employment journey.
So hopefully you agree with me there that Malia is a really interesting and very articulate person about her autism. And by the way, she writes regularly on our website. She writes regular blogs, so they're quite interesting. We've got blogs with autistic people writing about their personal experience, both in the workplace, their mental health, etc. So that's I think that's one of the most popular parts of our website, so I can recommend those. Moving on to employer obligations here. Adjustments is always a big question, is what are they and how to do them. Adjustments is a difficult phrase. We prefer to think of them actually as workplace enablers. It's an attempt to ensure that workplace obstacles are overcome and that the employees work to the best of their ability. And so why really wouldn't you want to do that? Autism is covered within disability of the Equality Act, which is one of the protected characteristics. Not all autistic people are automatically classified as disabled by themselves, as I've already mentioned, or even within the law. And it's actually a legal definition. And to decide whether somebody is disabled requires a legal qualification. However, an employer needs to make adjustments for an employee, even if they only suspect that the employee has a particular condition or is having a difficulty for some reason. Most adjustments are absolutely free. If they require a little bit more than basic funding, then Access to Work is available. I don't know how many of you have heard of Access to Work or have actually used it, but it's up to £65,000 a year that an employee can claim. So it can be for equipment, for adjustments, for one-off adjustments, or for ongoing support, for example, with a job coach, or anything else you can think of. In fact, that I know of one person who gets Access to Work for some kind of martial arts that they do, because undertaking martial arts actually helps them control themselves, control their anger, control their temper and their mental health. So if it's good for them, give it a go, ask for it. The adjustments are all individual. There is no autistic adjustment. So somebody might have a sensory sensitivity which requires them to have ear defenders. Other people won't be bothered by that at all. It's always a conversation. You have to talk to the individual person to ask what it is that will help them. So by all means, if you are interviewing or employing an autistic person, have a suggested list of adjustments that you can offer. But by the same token, ask them, because that suggested list will not encompass everything. You need to have an individual and ongoing conversation. As Judith said, autism can be acquired later on in life, and we all know that we have various illnesses that we acquire later on in life, and so it's not a one-off, that you will have to keep having an adjustment, because these things vary over time and with health conditions as well. So any questions about that, you can come back to me later. Moving on, over to Judith.
So what we're striving towards is equity in the workplace. We want to make sure that everyone has the right support at the right time, that the right people are giving the support and the right people are receiving the support. It's also really important that we support managers to enable this to happen. Managers, don't know everything, and it's okay as a manager to put your hand up and go, I need some help, I need some advice. What we want to do to promote equity is we want to do away with any barriers. So as you can see, everyone's got boxes, and then in the middle picture, they are they're shared as to who needs what, but there's still the need for those boxes. There's still that solid fence. So what we really want to do is move towards the third picture, where there's no need for those boxes anymore. No one needs to stand on the box. No one needs any special treatment. They can all see the match clearly. They can all support, and they're all equitable in the way that they see the match and can contribute and take part. So that's really what we want to do. We want people to be able to take part in their work life as much as possible in an equitable way. So we can do that by looking at what we can do within the workplace to make sure that happens. So we have things like workplace adjustment passports. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard of one, but they are a live document that has ownership by the person who's written it. They can change it at any point. They can add to it. They can take things away. They can share it with whoever they want to share it with, or whoever they don't want to share it with. But it is their document that enables them to tell everybody what they want, what they need, what they have in place already, any medication that they have, any treatment that they're having, any support that they're already having that they know works for them. And as things move on in their career and in their role, those might change as well. So a workplace adjustment passport is a really, really useful tool. The other thing as well is that we always encourage everyone to fill one in. So at CareTrade, we encourage all our staff to complete one when they start their job, regardless of if they have any health conditions or any disabilities, because everyone has needs within the workplace that they may need a manager to know about. So for example, if you're a parent or a carer, you have any volunteering responsibilities, you have a health condition that's manageable and that is managed, but you don't know if potentially 5 years down the line that may flare up, and that you may need somebody to know that that is something that that you have. And it's really just a way of just sharing as much information as possible about yourself. You can also within that look at intersectionality, so looking at all those protected characteristics that come under the Equality Act. So looking at race and gender and religion and age, pregnancy, any of disability, any of those protected characteristics, if you feel that you want somebody to know about that and how that affects you as a person, then it's really good to be able to share that as well, all in one place. Next slide. So we use the term sharing, although other people may use the word disclosure, but we find that that's a very negative medical model type of language. So we prefer to use the word sharing, because that's exactly what you're doing. You are sharing something about yourself. You may decide to share, or you may decide not to share, and that is completely up to you. It is always up to the individual. No one should ever be forced to share information they do not feel comfortable sharing. We don't know the history of that individual. We don't know any negative experiences they've had in the past. We don't know if they're newly diagnosed and just adjusting to their new identity, and therefore need a little bit more time before they then share that information with other people. They may also feel that they can cope. And until the point where they feel that they don't cope, they don't feel that they should be sharing their information. But what we want to do is make sure that we are encouraging sharing, even if someone decides not to take up that offer. That as an employer, we are making people aware that we are equal opportunities, that we do understand neurodiversity and neurodivergent conditions, and that we will be as supportive as possible, that we have an awareness of access to work, that we have an awareness of support in the workplace and workplace adjustments. So even when someone doesn't share, it doesn't mean they're not going to later on down the line when they feel more comfortable and know that that support is there. So we can also encourage in a number of ways. So encourage it through recruitment. So at any stage of recruitment, we are making sure that we are being as neuro-inclusive as possible, that we are encouraging people to apply and to say that they need adjustments right from the beginning, whether that's interview questions before the interview, whether that's having a visual map of where they're going for an interview, extra time at an interview. All of these things might make a really big difference to somebody, but maybe really easy, quick fixes for an employer. We also need to look at training for people who are interviewing, so interviewers, to make sure that they are aware of neurodiversity, and that if someone goes quiet, it isn't because they can't answer the question, it's because they're processing the information and just need a little bit of extra time before they then give the answer. So all of those things will go towards encouraging somebody to share if they know that those things are available to them. And again, there are some really good resources on the Employment Autism website. We also do more specific training on recruitment as well.
Thank you, Judith. So coming back to accommodations, adjustments, enablers, here's just a few of the suggestions and ideas to have in mind when you're working with somebody, either as a colleague or as an employer. Sensory sensitivities are a big one. So it could be noise, it could be smells, could be heating, lighting. So allow somebody to sit away from a busy corridor, or away, as Malia said, away from a noisy fridge, away from the smelly canteen. Allow somebody to travel outside of rush hours to avoid a crowded commute. And let them take breaks whenever they need them. I think we all have the occasion when we think, there's enough, I need to get away. Let's just have a few five minutes or so just away from this. Judith mentioned cognitive processing. So have a think about how you're communicating with your employee. So make sure that instructions are step by step for both training and instruction and for tasks. Allow a bit of extra time. Make sure your instructions are clear and preferably written. You may well know exactly what the steps are to perform something, but somebody else may not know. So write them down in a level of detail that somebody can actually follow, and provide information about who can help them, because it's not always obvious where to go to ask, who to go to ask. So consider allowing somebody to have an allocated mentor or a buddy, so that they know exactly they're comfortable knowing who to ask for help. In general, work to somebody's strengths. Do they really need to do absolutely every aspect of a job, or can you carve it up so that somebody is working to the best of their ability on particular aspects of a job role? And if they're finding something really, really difficult for some reason, do they actually need to be doing that? Can that be given to someone else? Can the tasks be allocated differently? The bottom line is, it's not rocket science, and what we tend to say is that anything that you do for an autistic or neurodivergent person will be welcomed by all employees. I mean, who wouldn't welcome a detailed induction and written instructions for a task, rather than some please go and do that verbal comment just in passing. A lot of these things are just common sense, and they're free. Moving somebody to a quieter desk, allowing them to wear ear defenders, allowing them to travel in at a quieter time of day. These are not anything that requires any kind of expenditure. So on the flip side, the employers need to look to their processes to make sure that their processes and culture are flexible, and that all needs can be accommodated, and that everybody has an understanding of differences and the social implications of that. So look at your processes, your recruitment, your management. Look at the way your organization is portraying itself. Are you using terms like teamwork? Everybody has to be good at teamwork. Really, do they? Think carefully about how you are portraying your organization and how you're advertising vacancies to ensure that you are attracting the best and best qualified candidates. Because simply by wording something differently, you might be excluding a bunch of people who take one look at something and say, I'm sorry, that's not for me, whereas actually they're sort of giving much more depth to a criteria that really isn't important. So those are just a few things. As we said, these are only suggestions, and you need to have that individual conversation with somebody. I think that's pretty much it. Judith, anything more from you to say?
So thank you so much for listening. Just to kind of reiterate, a lot of things that we put in place and we make recommendations for aren't expensive, are very easy, and do benefit everybody. You know, you've got your clients, you've got the other people that you work with. It can, you know, it supports a wider network, so it's not just impacting on one person. It really does have an effect on everybody then involved. And the more that people see that people are positive around supporting neurodivergent staff, the more positive the outcomes are in lots of different aspects of the work that you do. Our contact details are there. If anyone needs to talk to us and wants to ask for advice confidentially outside of this, please feel free to contact us. And we are very happy to take questions.
We also do a lot of training and provide job coaches and on-site support. So then again, any questions about how you might get some support from us, just be in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will share the slides with everyone, as well as your contact details. So if anyone does want to reach out directly, but if you've got any questions on, you know, the recruitment process or the support that's on offer from CareTrade or ENI, just let us know and we'll be happy to, answer those or help where we can.